I sleep in a storage cupboard once a week at the university.
Like, I do understand, like, not making 45 portfolios for 45 different companies, but if there's a specific style you like to work in, like, look at the kind of work that the company is making and try to emulate a similar type of portfolio as to what's on their website. It's just going to make it easier for you to apply, and they're going to immediately know that you have interest in them. So
I would just say, I think it's a good point, and I agree with it. I would just add as a note that, because there are quite a lot of students, they love Blizzard, they love Blizzard game, they play Overwatch, they want to get an internship at Blizzard. Like, be realistic with yourself. Like, if that's where you eventually want to get to, great. Like, do a lot of Blizzard style artwork, but also use that portfolio to apply to smaller companies. You can still use the same portfolio, because if it's good work, it doesn't matter if it's in Blizzard style or not. But don't tunnel vision too hard on one really high company, because I see a lot of students like, oh yeah, I'm going to do an internship at Blizzard, and I'm like, yeah. Like, maybe try, like, reach high, but you're gonna get a little lower.
Going off that point too, one thing I normally tell people to strive for is like a sense of realism, and I feel like Blizzard is so specific in their style, it doesn't necessarily translate into all types of fantasy art, right? So if you can draw or paint, kind of more realistic looking fantasy concepts, I think even if you wanted to make a portfolio for Blizzard, you're more capable of doing that from a more realistic standpoint than just starting off like super stylized. If that makes sense.
Yes, I think I agree, yeah.
Yeah.
I'd say aim for your dream job, but just be aware that you're probably going to hit a little lower.
Yeah. Were you going to say something, Oliver?
Oh, no. It was just a style is probably something that we could touch upon as well, because I feel like it's something a lot of students feel like they have to have a style.
Yes.
And I feel like, I just wanted to ask Dennis as well. Did you ever say to your younger years as well, like, oh, I want to just do this style and get good at this style? Or did you kind of bounce around? Or what would you say?
I think you make a good point, because it is a thing that's very often, I see it in a lot of like interviews and stuff, like, oh, well, how do I get a style? What's my style? Like, again, all my opinions are my own, and you don't have to agree. Like, a lot of the stuff I say is not factual, but what I believe is that who gives an F about style? Like, just like, don't worry about that at all. I think you should just try to study things like probably realistically, and if you can draw anything realistically, stylizing is way easier. If you learn to stylize something, going to realism is a lot more difficult. That is a general truth. So keep that in mind. Sure, you can enjoy a style. Like, for instance, if you want to work in Japan on animes, like, then draw that, because otherwise those are such specific styles that they would want to see that in your portfolio. But like, more like maybe this game studio or that game studio, all within like the Western culture, it doesn't really matter as long as you have like good work, like your style.
What I like to tell people in terms of developing a style, I feel like style is how you draw when you're not looking at reference. It's just like how you would naturally draw, and it just kind of comes about the more you get better at doing your art. And there's a difference between stylizing something and your style. Your style just comes from the way that you lay down brushstrokes and draw your lines and stuff like that. And it's something that nobody else can emulate. And it's not something that you can really force. It just kind of like happens, And studying realism is always going to, push your style in a certain way, because it's going to be how you perceive forms in your own abstract way. So, all right. So somebody else said, what is the best way to manage time as a student? I sometimes find it hard to balance personal work, uni work, and fundamental studying. I think that's a good question.
I think it is a good question. I'm just not sure if I'm the right person to answer it. I sleep in a storage cupboard once a week at the university. because I don't live where I study. I work in a different city, and I don't want to take the train because it's 4 hours of traveling back and forth combined. So I just sleep in the storage cupboard. So maybe I'm not the person to ask about like a healthy way to balance it. I think you just need to set goals and things that you want to do. Like for instance, I know I have very ambitious goals of what I want to be doing or where I want to be at in 2 to 3 years. And I know I'm not going to reach those goals if I work 30 or 40 hours a week. So I need to have less of a social life to reach the goals I want to reach. So it's just a balance of how much social life / fun things I want to do / where do I want to get to with my career, with my job life. And then you need to balance it out and be determined no matter what you do. I don't know, you probably have some things to add in this regard.
I just feel like at certain points in your life you kind of just like have to put in the time, and everybody has like a different philosophy on this. Like I feel like I've even watched Feng Zhu videos where he's like, oh, you just have to draw 18 hours a day and that's just it, and it's like I don't really think you need to do that in order to get done the things you want to get done. It's kind of like you need to, be aware of how you're managing your time. And if you're like, oh man, I'm playing too many video games, I should really be drawing, it probably means you should be drawing more. It's like, just be realistic about what makes you feel like you're accomplished for the day. And if things are going slowly for you in terms of your progress or your career or whatever, then you might need to step it up and put in some more hours. And always make a schedule for yourself as well. Having a schedule is a good way to manage time.
That's not enough.
That's not enough. 23 hours and 59 minutes.
What are you doing that 1 second? Like what? Are you thinking about playing video games? Are you thinking about eating, showering? Disgusting. That guy will never make it. No, I think in general that it is like on YouTube and in general in the industry, you get a lot of these comments. Oh, you need to work 15 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I mean, there's some truth to it. If you like drawing, unlike other jobs, it is a lot to do just with pure practice. I don't believe there's a thing such as talent or whatever. So if you are drawing 10 hours a day and someone else is drawing 6 hours a day, unless something really weird is going on, the person that's drawing 10 hours a day will get better than the person that's drawing 6 hours a day. So you do need to be I do think most students should be harder on themselves when they're thinking about how much work they're doing. If that means if you want to work like for, I don't know, AAA industry or a lot of people say Blizzard, Riot, if you really think you want to work at Riot or Blizzard in 4 or 5 years, that's going to take a lot of hours to get to that skill level. Mm-hmm. So yeah, you got to be realistic with yourself that, if you only do 3 hours a day and play the rest of the day video games, it's probably not going to work out.
Yeah. So going off that point, the one thing I wanted to talk to you about, we discussed this a little bit last time I talked, but I have never worked like in-house in a studio. I've always worked freelance. So I'm kind of curious about like what your day is like. Are you working an 8-hour day when you're at the studio? 9-hour day?
Yeah. I think Atomhawk's pretty chill, but all the studios I worked at were pretty chill. Like they had, all of them had flexible starting hours. So currently it's between 8:30 and 10 you can start. And then you can leave between 5:30 and 7 then. Yeah, I think. No, between 5 and 6:30. So if you start at 8:30, you're allowed to leave at 5. So gotcha. That's an 8.5 hour workday, but you get an hour for lunch. So you're drawing for 7.5 hours. That's kind of the work.
So that was my other question is like, are there any times where you're doing meetings or like administrative work or anything like that? Or are you really just drawing for 7 hours out of your workday?
I think here, this all depends very much on the company. Like Muga was like a big mobile game studio. There were a lot more meetings, a lot more hierarchy as well. At Atomhawk, the production side of things is really good. So there is a production team and they take care of everything related to, feedback that you need to get from the client, the kind of work that you need to be doing. So you can literally just focus on drawing that entire time as a junior, of course. So the more senior people, principal artists, they are constantly in meetings, calls with clients. They fly to other countries to speak, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, it depends on what level you are. The higher level, the less you're drawing, the more you're doing others.
That makes sense. Interesting.
Let's do a photo bashing rant.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's do that.
Interesting one, yeah. Yes, like, how do you...
That was a joke.
How do you...
I want to hear it.
Okay. Yeah, let's do it then.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's educational.
Yeah.
We can clip this out and make it its own video.
Yes. Oh God, that would get many clicks. I'll just make it very out there. Like again, my opinion is my own, and this is not necessarily 100% factual, but yeah, I just think you shouldn't photo bash pretty much. If you're a student, then I did a talk at the university at Teesside a few weeks ago. And I prepared like some things that I think I got work sent in from a lot of the students. And a very common thing was this over-reliance on photo bashing to create details and finished looking pieces to hide fundamental knowledge that's lacking. So if you're photo bashing, be mindful of the reason why you're doing it. Is it because you can't do what the photo is doing for you? Which I think a lot of the times that is the case. Or are you really just using it to speed up something that you could also do manually? But if you're putting textures on something and you don't know how to draw those textures or render those materials by hand, then I don't think you should be using the photos yet at all. And yeah, in general, I just think photo bashing is it's not helping.
The students that are submitting these photo bash works that are hiding the fundamentals, do they look good, or they still not look right?
I think in some cases it will look better than if they hand painted it completely.
Sure.
But it clearly shows a lack of understanding of structure underneath the photos. So when you use photos, a lot of they will be taken with different camera lenses, lighting will be different, perspective will be different. If you don't understand perspective and the correct structure underneath, you can always tell the lighting doesn't feel natural in the photo bash pieces because they're not applying the lighting correctly. The perspective of the underlying forms doesn't apply correctly to the photo textures. Like, photo texturing just complicates things a lot. So if you're still learning, just stay away from photo bashing. Just draw things by hand. I just wanted to mention that I think feedback, I think people watching this, they're like in our bros, like Discord, I think it's such communities like that are very important if you want to improve. Like, the fundamentals alone will get you very far, but you will struggle while learning those fundamentals. So you need to ask other people for feedback on your work, be it people in real life, people on the internet, people in Facebook groups, people on forums. Like, there should be constant feedback, at least, every week you should be getting some input from other people, because it's a lot harder to figure everything out by yourself. So that would be my last point. Like, feedback and fundamentals are key if you want to improve quickly.
Yeah, I definitely agree. It's something that Dennis and I talked about the other day too. I don't have too many art friends right now to reach out to with some of my client stuff or personal stuff. So it's good to have somebody that can look at your work with a critical eye and just kind of like tear it apart and just be like, this is what you need to fix. This is what I'm seeing that's wrong with it. Because when you're looking at your own work all day long, it's kind of like sometimes it just looks okay to you. And sometimes it's nice to have that person to like push you a little bit further.
Yes. And I think giving feedback in that regard as well, even if you're beginner or student or whatever, if you give feedback, for instance, if I give feedback to like someone's illustration, that illustration is already at a point where I'm seeing it with a fresh eye, even though that person might have already spent like 100 hours on it. If I do that with my own piece, I'm not seeing it with a fresh eye anymore at that point of the illustration, because I have seen it for 100 hours. So by giving feedback to other people's work, you're stepping in at a different time in the process of making an image, and therefore you're learning new things and seeing new things that you wouldn't have seen if you had done the piece yourself. So I also think giving feedback is a very good way to learn as well.
I agree.
Perfect.